Hello! In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Detailed Rates page. This page is used to understand and adjust rates for a project, service by service. Click on Detailed Rates. The page has 4 tabs: Cost, Sale, Free Comp, and Info. Cost indicates the cost rates as defined in the databases. This comes from provider contracts and is what will be paid to providers. Sale indicates the sales rate. These are defined in the rate list linked to the client, adjusted for commission as applicable. It is the basis on which clients will be invoiced. Free Comp only applies to guided tours. It indicates the cost as well as the sales rate implications of guide and tour leader participation. It is the result of the provider's complementary policy entered in the databases, the number of passengers on the project, and the number of guides and tour leaders participating. Info displays any comments entered in the databases on the applicability of the rates. Considering first the Cost tab. Manually amended rates are indicated in red under M. In this example, the meet and greet and the flight. Date shows the in date for the project as defined in Service Basket, here 7 November. The itinerary day number for the service, day 1, day 2, day 3. The weekday for the service, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the date of the service. For example, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, etc. Service shows the provider and service, and, if applicable, the option it is linked to. Hovering the cursor over car rental displays the pickup, drop-off, and rental duration details. Hovering the cursor over a flight displays the route details. Clicking on the provider name, for example, Kleine Salze, displays the provider info page. Pax shows the provider Pax-space bracket applicable. Day shows the provider weekday bracket applicable. Status indicates the reliability of the rate, whether manual, estimated, or OK, in other words, based on a contract. The currency is as determined by the supplier. The first rate column shows on top the per person sharing component and below the tax, if applicable. Here, for example, on the flight. Single room supplement for accommodation only. Divisible rate, in other words, to be shared by all group members. For transport, on top the per day rate and below the total, being per day times the number of days. In this example, 415,8 times 3 equals 1,247,4. Fixed extra displays an extra charge per person, for example, entrance fees or tips. DivX displays an extra divisible charge, if any. Triple room rate, for accommodation only, and only where 3 adults sharing can be accommodated. Quadruple room rate, for accommodation only again, and only where 4 adult sharing can be accommodated. Child 1 and 2 and ages shows the child rates and age brackets for which they apply. R allows resetting the rates that had been manually amended, for example, for the meet and greet. Subtotals are calculated for the first 5 rate columns, with optionals shown separate. Click Modify to change any rate component. For example, the flight per person to 1,200. As soon as you click Save, the subtotals are recalculated. To undo the change, click Reset. Note that the rate is entirely reset, not just for the latest amendment, but to what is in the databases. The information displayed on Sale is very similar to the Cost tab, but refers to the rates to be charged to the client rather than paid to providers. Note that there is no rate status, as that only applies to cost. There are also no fixed extra or div extra columns. The extra cost amounts from these fields are added to the per person and divisible rates respectively in the calculation of the sales rate. Subtotals are calculated for the first 3 rate columns, with optionals shown separate. Click Modify to change any rate component, for example for the flight to 2,800. As soon as you click Save, the subtotals are recalculated. To undo the change, click Reset. If there is more than one currency, subtotals are per currency. In this example, in ZAR and USD. The sales currency might also be different. For example, Euro. As we saw, it is possible to manually amend cost as well as sales rate. A change to the cost will lead to the recalculation of the sales rate, with the manual change indicator appearing on both tabs. For example, the meet and greet. Note that currently the cost is 173,88 and the sale 16,23. If now the cost is amended to 150, as soon as it is saved, a manual amendment indicator appears for the cost, the sale amount is recalculated here to 14, and a manual amendment indicator appears as well. The sale can also be amended, for example here to 15. This does not affect the cost. Still 150. Similarly, when a manual cost is reset, the sale is automatically recalculated as well. However, resetting the sales rate resets just the sales rate. The cost is not affected. The filters are the same on the cost and sales tabs. Optional, by default all is selected, but it is possible to select just one optional, for example Kruger 4x4. By default, the main period and main backspaces is selected, but it is possible to select all periods and all backspaces. Note that the periods displayed are as defined in rate setup, for example 1 November, 1 January and 1 May, whereas the backspaces comes from the provider contract, for example 1 to 16, 17 to 29 and 30 plus for transport with guide. By default, hide row if amount is 0 is ticked. If this is unticked, services for which there is no charge are also displayed, for example some activities included in guided tours. For guided tours, the cost of transport and guide has three components: per person, divisible, and divisible extra. All of these are per day, with a total calculated based on the per day rate times the duration. For example, for transport and guide of 6 days, 26 times 6 is 182. The per person amount reflects mainly tips and porterage. The divisible amount reflects the guide salary. The divisible extra amount reflects the vehicle cost. In addition to these costs, there is a further cost implication to having guides and drivers, the participation charge. In Service Basket, this is shown as a lump sum at the bottom. In Detailed Rates, how this is arrived at can be seen on the Free Comp tab. The display on this tab is a bit different from the other tabs. It is still possible to select an optional, but on this tab the periods, as defined in Rate Setup, can be selected one by one. For example, 1 March, 1 May, or 1 June. The backspaces are also as defined in Rate Setup and can be selected one by one. 44, 40, 35, etc. This is because the calculation of free comp is directly affected by the number of passengers. For the same reason, the field Packs on this tab also displays the backspaces as selected. For example, compare the display for Zulu-Nyala. On base 44, C is 2. For base 20, C is 1. Under Number of Guides, F shows the number of tour leaders participating in the service. If there are no tour leaders, it shows a 0. If there are tour leaders, it will show a 1 or more. For example, a 1 on Balmoral. G shows the numbers of drivers and guides participating in the service. For example, for Balmoral, 2. C shows the number of complementaries accorded by the provider given the number of packs. In this example, 3 on Balmoral. Under Guide Unit Cost, per person shows the per person cost rate applicable to the guides. SS shows the single supplement cost rate applicable to the guides. For example, 626.5 and 364.5 for Balmoral. Under Guide Unit Sale, PP shows the per person sales rate applicable to guides and SS shows the single supplement sales rate applicable to guides. For example, 806.86 and 469.43 for Balmoral. Under Totals, Cost shows the total cost for all tour leaders, guides and drivers. This is calculated as the number of F plus the number G minus the number C times the cost per person plus single supplement. So, for example, for Balmoral, 1 plus 2 minus 3 equals 0 times 991 equals 0. For Cattle Baron, 1 plus 2 minus 1 equals 2 times 174.9 equals 349.8. Sale shows the total sale for all tour leaders, guides and drivers calculated in the same way with the sales rate. It is possible to change the numbers as well as the unit cost and unit sale. For example, for St. Lucia Boat, change the G to 0. As soon as you click Save, the total is recalculated. The subtotal sales rate for services as per project on this tab is the same as the amount displayed in Service Basket. Note that here 4,186. In the Service Basket, 4,187. The final Info tab displays information about the rates and calculation, whether or not the rates are closed, when the calculation was last updated, and operator or client information. Any comments entered by the database department regarding the validity of the rates. It is possible to print the cost, sale, and free comp detailed rates. On the tab you want, for example, cost, click Print and print. Similarly, on the Sale tab, click Print and print. And on the Free Comp tab, click Print and print. Note that these are working documents for internal use. Totals are not calculated and cost and sale exclude the impact of free and comp. Therefore, the amounts may not match what is on the itinerary, which could lead to confusion for the client. And that is it. Thank you for watching.